Hey everybody, wake up. This is Wake Up with Mark Joyner, episode number 94. This is the 30-day morning person challenge, day 13, and today we will talk about how to program your mind with stories. Okay, now, I'm not talking about the stories that your grandma watches. You know, she says, I'm just sitting at home watching stories, letting the man program my mind for poverty. Maybe some of you guys get that joke, maybe some of you don't. Maybe I need to deconstruct that a little bit. The stories that your grandma's watching on TV are programming her mind, and you can program your mind with stories too. But it starts with the stories that you tell yourself. Now, why do stories program your mind? We can hypothesize about this in many, many ways. Some people say that the human mind is wired for story, that throughout history we have been passing along an oral history. For example, before there was a written history, there was an oral history, and the oral history came in the form of stories. Another reason why stories are powerful is that stories seem to put us in some kind of a hypnotic trance of sorts. When we watch stuff on TV or on any of the screens, TV is maybe a passé term these days because we're consuming media in so many different formats. But when we sit down there and we consume that, when we see a story streamed at us, that somehow puts us into a trance, and that trance opens up a gateway into the unconscious mind where our mind is more readily able to absorb information. Some people say that a theta wave state is more effective for allowing information to program your unconscious mind, and that when kids are young, they tend to be in a high theta state a lot. They're very dreamy. This is why it's so easy to program them, so easy to educate them, so easy for them to learn. Why do I say that grandma's stories are programming her for poverty? Well, that's what most of the stuff that you see in mainstream culture does. Okay, straight up, it puts a lot of the wrong information into your head. It corrupts your belief system such that it makes you helpless. If you don't believe this, just look at some of the underlying messages being put out there. Now, let's talk about some of the stories that you're telling yourself. This is really what I want to get at today, okay? Because you are programming your mind with story all day, every day. Let me give you some examples. Let's say you met someone on Tinder or whatever. You met them out on a date, and then you send them a message, and they don't reply back, right? What story are you telling yourself about why they didn't reply back? Okay, let's say somebody had a party and you weren't invited. What story are you telling yourself about why they didn't invite you? Think about that. Think about that. You can make up any story you want. Let me give you a couple of examples of stories that are very, very effective at programming the mind. So I've had this experience, very recently. There was a woman I met, and we were texting a little bit, and I was away, and then I came back and I texted her, and I said, "Hey, I'm back," and she didn't reply, right? And I thought, "Oh, okay." I sat there and I thought about it for a little bit, and I caught myself telling myself a story about it. Now, when I was younger, man, I probably would have made up some catastrophic story to lower my self-esteem, to make myself feel bad about the situation. So I caught myself, in the nanosecond of that, and I said, "Well, okay, why are you making up a story about this? You have no idea why she didn't reply." Turns out a week later, she just messages me out of the blue. Now, I didn't write back and say, "Why didn't you reply earlier?" I just pretended like, nothing had changed, right? Maybe she's testing me to see if I'm tough, if I can handle a little bit of rejection, to see how I'll handle it. Most dudes can't handle it very well. They're going to get all uppity. "Oh, well, if you're going to be like that, you're going to write back and be offended," it's going to turn the woman off, probably, I would imagine. Maybe something happened to her. Maybe she was busy. I mean, who knows? Who knows? Maybe she was scared. Maybe she was like, "Wow, I like this guy, but I'm afraid to write to him." I don't know. But if I make up a story in my head that creates a lower image of me, that is very, very effective programming. So, either don't make up stories at all and allow it to be blank, or make up a story that builds up your self-esteem. I mean, if I see something like that now, I'm going to be, I'm going to make up a story that works in my favor, that makes me feel better about myself. Now, let me tell you an interesting case of a story that was told to a young man that changed his life. Okay, and the story was false, but this false story programmed his mind to become something great. Now, this young man, so the legend goes, who knows if this is really true, he was at school, and his mom got a letter from the school, and then she read the letter silently, and then the young man asked, well, what did the letter say? And she said, well, the letter said that he is so brilliant, that he is smarter than all of the teachers. We don't have the facilities here to teach him, so we want you to teach him at home because he is so gifted and so prodigious and has so much potential. So this young man grows up and becomes a great inventor. You may have heard of his name, Thomas Edison. The legend goes that he found the letter later in life, and what the letter said was, young Thomas is incapable of being taught. He is possibly mentally retarded. That was a word that they used at the time. I know some people are offended by that word today. I don't know what the politically correct word is to talk about somebody with Down syndrome. Okay, but this is the expression of, as if I should care about what the politically correct word is. No. Anyway, so it said that he's so lacking in skill, so lacking in talent, that they would no longer teach him at school because there was no point in teaching him. Now think about this. If the mother had told young Thomas that story that was in that letter, that he was a talentless, ineducable young man who was borderline Down syndrome, how do you think that man's life would have changed? Do you think that he would have viewed himself in a different way, such that his behavior would have changed and conformed with that story that was told about him? Almost certainly so. I would imagine that the mother's choice in doing that is probably one of the greatest acts of parenting ever committed by anyone. How she could have seen how important that was to know that changing his self-image would change his behavior, and to make that decision on the fly is astonishing. Now, there are a lot of cases about this. There's an interesting, classic Greek play, Pygmalion, which was later, revamped into My Fair Lady. And I think George Bernard Shaw did an adaptation, and then there was a musical adaptation, and it was all about this notion that if this man were to treat this young, impoverished, uneducated woman as if she were a lady, that she would become the lady. And that was true. That she became the person that he saw her as. So people, when they have a story about you, that perception that they have of you, when they thrust that upon you, that programs your mind. But you have the control of being able to accept or reject the stories that people are thrusting upon you. And you can make up your own stories and choose to program yourself in any way you see fit. I don't know about you, but I would like to choose to tell myself things that are going to make me feel better about myself. Now, does that mean I want to lie about myself and not be honest about my failings? No, of course not, right? So, these two things are not mutually exclusive. The story that I would tell myself is hey, we are all going through ups and downs. We all have strengths and weaknesses. Whenever a weakness of mine is exposed, I will use that opportunity. I am the kind of person who will use that opportunity to strengthen himself. I will not be deterred. And because I know this from past experience, I will overcome that. I will transmute that situation and turn myself into something better and stronger. That is a powerful story you can tell yourself, and maybe you can play around with that for the next few days and see how that programs your mind. Okay, now I didn't talk about the 30-day morning person challenge today. I'm going to leave it at this for today. It is Sunday morning, my time. I don't know what time it is, what day it is, wherever you are in the world, whenever you are watching this. But wherever you are, whatever time it is, I hope you have a beautiful day. And I hope you start telling yourself powerful stories to turn yourself into something amazing, because that potential is inside you.